Hello, my name is Eli Efrat. I am Chief Executive of Axana. What if I told you that I could take your existing asynchronous infrastructure, be it line, cost, data centers, and turn it into synchronous zero data loss replication? This is what I'm here to show you today, and thank you for joining our video presentation. If we take replication today, there are basically two methods of doing replication. One of them is synchronous. Synchronous equals zero data loss. It's a two-phase commit process. But synchronous replication is limited by distance because of speed of light. It has to use fiber channel lines and close by a data center. Hence, it is cost prohibitive in most cases. If you have a link failure on the line, you basically have to stop production. You have to stop production because you have no replication at all. But nobody does that. Nobody stops production because production is more important than disaster recovery. So they went and invented asynchronous. And asynchronous is great. It's IP lines. It can go any distance because it doesn't need to commit twice before it gives you the OK, gives the application the OK. But you're guaranteed data loss. That data that was in transit, that what's called a lag, that buffer that never made it to the other side, is going to be lost in a physical disaster. And that link failure that I talked about before has the same impact on asynchronous as it has on synchronous, because now you're accumulating more and more data on your buffer, and that buffer, which is much larger now, is going to be lost. What I'm here to show you is a combination of synchronous and asynchronous. It's a new system, a shift in paradigm that will basically take all the merits of synchronous and asynchronous and throw away all the disadvantages. This is the Axana Phoenix system, and it's combined today with Recovery Point from EMC for the VNX system, for vBlock 1, and of course for the Clarion. What we provide with this system, with the new Axana system, is 100% data protection and recovery, just like synchronous replication. Zero data loss. Unlimited distance. Go to the moon as far as we're concerned. No latency. Synchronous latency. Even if you're doing asynchronous replication, we are going to significantly save you money, and I'm going to show you how. That WAN link failure that I talked about before is solved, completely solved with the Axana system, and don't worry, I didn't drink or smoke anything before I started this presentation. In short, we're offering remote, synchronous replication over IP line, again, over any distance. How do we do this? Normally, the application would write to the storage would split the data to Recovery Point would send it to the other side asynchronous. Now, in this situation, you have a lag, you have a buffer. You either chose that buffer or had to choose it or had to cope with that buffer because of the bandwidth. That buffer is going to be gone. That transit data, that delta, that lag is going to be gone in a physical disaster. That's known, and people basically had to live with it. What we're saying here with Recovery Point and Axana together, no more, and not only that, you're going to pay less money. Your TCO is going to be actually smaller. So what we do now with a combined system, at the heart of the Axana system is a black box. It's a disaster-proof storage device which will sustain any disaster, fire, flood, explosions, short of an atomic bomb, any disaster. Now the application right on the storage will split the data to Recovery Point, and then Recovery Point, instead of sending the data to the other side, will first synchronously send the data to our system. And again, at the heart of our system is a device which will withstand any disaster. Now, we don't have to keep all the data because most of the data is going to go then, right after it reaches our box, and is committed over fiber at a very short distance, just a few yards, because we are inside the primary center. Hence, no latency, as I said before, and hence any distance because the rest of the data is going asynchronously thousands of miles away, hundreds or thousands. Because of that, All we have to keep is that lag. Now, the integration between the systems actually calls for Recover Point to tell Axana as they are connected, and you don't have to stop production for that. You don't have to do anything. Just zone them together. And as they are connected, Recover Point tells us which are the volumes to be protected, which are the consistency groups to be protected. It tells us if it has a link failure. It tells us it has a high load. We know all that by the integration that we worked on together. So all we have to do now, since we keep the lag and the data center on the other side keeps everything else, if there is a physical disaster, if everything is gone, now we have to only send that lag. And the lag is 50 megs, 100 megs, half a gig, a gig. Basically, there are multiple ways of keeping the RTO at synchronous level, not just the RPO 0, not just the distance. We have multiple ways of moving the data. So one way of moving the data is if the WAN is intact. If the WAN is intact, Axana will send the data immediately, only that lag, to the other side. If the WAN is gone and you can still go into the room because it was a fire or it was a flood, not everything is a colossal disaster, then you can connect a laptop to a protected port. There's a recovery module on the laptop, go 5 miles away, and again, send the data. Of course, the data is all encrypted in the box. If that doesn't work, then the box actually can sustain itself. Everything is destroyed, but the box has a battery, it has a cellular modem, it has 3 antennas, it has a circuit board. It decides which antenna is going to get more power to send the data. And over 3.5 G, we are talking about a gig an hour. So we're way basically below an hour, which is fantastic RTO for synchronous. So with this combined system, we basically achieved 0 data loss, unlimited distance, RTO of synchronous, hence synchronous remotely over IP lines on asynchronous infrastructure. How do we save you money? I'll show you in the next slides. Now, what do we do with the WAN link failure that I talked about before? When the WAN fails, you're basically at great risk because you are accumulating more and more and more buffer now. Now, it's not a gig, it's much more than that. If Recover Point and Axana are connected together, Recover Point tells Axana that it has a link failure. And now we know not to discard any data. Otherwise, we would discard whatever is not the lag. So now we are keeping the data. And if that WAN link failure, if that were not just a SLA somewhere that's going to be back in 10 minutes, all you need is the 10, 15 minutes to know if it's an SLA and it's going to come back and you're going to basically flush the data again into the line, or it's a rolling disaster. So if it's a rolling disaster at you, now you're not at risk because all the data sits in the box. This is a joint development by EMC and Recover Point. We worked on it for quite some time, developing the product and developing the integration to be very seamless. It's integrated with EMC's Clarion and VNX product line, and of course Vlog 1. It was eLab tested and qualified, and it's on EMC Select. So basically EMC is the one selling this product and not Axana. We are embedded, integrated, to the point we're in the user interface of Recover Point. So under Recover Point settings, you have Axana settings, and you can choose to activate Axana, and you can choose which consistency groups are going to be protected. So all of that is not done from the Axana GUI. As beautiful as it is, it's only for monitoring. How do we save you money? And we save you a lot of money on the communication line, because when you size your replication, you have to size the bandwidth to the peaks. You have peaks and valleys. It's not just static average bandwidth of application throughput. You have those peaks, and the risk is that if the disaster happens during a peak and you bought, here in this drawing, it's less than 20 megabits per second, you bought the average, and if it's exactly during that high load you're going to have the disaster, you're going to lose much more than the planned lag. What we tell you, hey, that data, if it's Recover Point and Axana, it sits inside our black box, inside our disaster-proof storage, and it's protected. So now You don't have to increase your bandwidth to that 116 or whatever it is in that drawing. You don't have to increase almost tenfold your bandwidth. You don't have to decrease the amount of data replicated. And over time, that's going to grow. Your data is growing. Your applications are growing. Now you can achieve zero data loss for everything. Why settle? So with Oksana, you're completely protected, and you can choose a much lower bandwidth. And over time, this is a lot of savings. The way the box is built, it's looks this very unassuming here, but it's very sophisticated inside. You basically have a canister on the bottom left that holds the flash disk. It has to be flash disk. It can't be a mechanical disk, and you couldn't do that 5 years ago because flash was much more expensive and less resilient. The cylinder that it's inside is resilient to everything, all the shocks and explosions, and inside it's of course waterproof. The bottom right, you can see this unassuming blanket that wraps the cylinder. This is actually sophisticated technology. This is basalt fiber. It's used by the Louvre Museum to protect paintings, and you can torch this from the side or from any direction, and actually it will be nice and cool inside. So we've built this box to really be, and tested it, of course, and this is our next slide, to be disaster proof. We've put it in special furnaces. We've put it in disaster simulations. We've thrown things at it. We've put 5,000 pounds on it. We've subjected it to the vibrations of earthquakes, and it was basically sustained everything and was transmitting data right after. So if I'd like to summarize all of what I said just now, if we take the parameters of replication and data protection, we look at cost, we look at how much data we're going to lose, because of course we don't lose anything if we could, and we look at the distances between our data centers because we want to consolidate data centers. And of course link failure protection is something that we added. The first three is something that everybody's talking about. If we took those indicators, we can see that synchronous replication and asynchronous replication both suffer from different disadvantages. Synchronous replication, it's great. It's not losing data. It's the ultimate protection, but also it's the ultimate prohibitive cost. And the distances are very short because of speed of light. And of course, there is no solution for WAN link failure. If you take asynchronous replication, then you're guaranteed to lose data. I can promise you that. The cost is great. It's IP lines. You can use existing data centers, but you're going to lose data. If you take Oksana and RecoverPoint together, it's the first and the only solution out there that will provide RPO 0, unlimited distance, RTO of synchronous, and the only protection against link failure. I'd like to thank you for joining our presentation. We'd love to talk to you. All you have to do is go to our website at www.oksana.com. And we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.